Oh, this is exciting. We got some ancient cave race about to start between two of the top runners that are out there. That's Fair Zach and Travik Talks playing from across the globe, racing each other for what will be a ideally less than 2 hour run, but we'll see what ends up happening.
We'll see.
My name is Ellison, and I am one of the voices that you'll be hearing.
And the other one is me. I'm Machiko Rafa. I play this game from time to time as well.
Cat's already placing bets on the Ancient Cave winning today's race, so we'll just have to see what ends up happening. If you're not familiar with the Ancient Cave, though, let's give a little rundown. This is a 2-hour dive in a side game, which can be accessed in the campaign of Lufia 2. And if you beat the game twice, once in regular mode and once in New Game Plus mode or retry mode, then you get to access gift mode, which allows you to enter the Ancient Cave with any party that you'd like, as long as Maxim is your party leader, and any capsule monster, which is a little AI-controlled buddy that fights alongside you. The idea here is that you have a 99-floor dive to get to a final boss, which is a giant jelly, and you have a time limit or turn limit to take it out. Ideally, you're battling monsters, getting the experience and stuff that you need from the chests that you see in order to fulfill that need, and you won't get smashed along the way by the terrible monsters that you may see along the way, especially in the middle to the later portions of the run.
Mostly on the later portion of the run. So we basically picked up the best possible party here with Guy, Decker, and Artie. So yeah, Artie is excellent because he has great agility. For the other two, they are pretty tanky. They can use pretty good weapons, especially Decker. Other than that, I mean, Maxim is there doing his thing.
Much like other RPGs of this era, you have a front row and a back row, so you'll have two people who can stand in the front, two people who can stand in the back. This game uses a mechanic that increases the damage dealt and taken by characters in the front row. Decker and Guy, who are placed into the front row for each runner, are going to be the stronger, more tanky characters. They cannot cast magic, while Maxim and Artie can, and they'll be hanging out in the back row, ideally taking less damage and using whatever MP that they have towards casting heal spells, which we'll hopefully be finding fairly soon. The spells that we're looking out for, if you're unfamiliar, are Strong, Stronger, and Champion, as well as 2 revival spells called Rally and Valor. You may wonder why people aren't opening chests right now. In particular, that's Fair Zach is skipping red chests, looks like entirely, all the way through floor 3 so far.
Yeah, until here he has not opened any chest.
Why would he be doing that? It's a pretty interesting thing if you're in a run where you need to find stuff to survive and you're not opening chests to survive.
I mean, this kind of feels like he's doing any percent, and there's a Valor find for direct thought. It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean, on a marathon setting, you want to open chests, in my opinion.
So interesting things that are going on here. You saw that our runners picked up 2 items. One was Valor on Travik Talks' screen, and the other was the Dragon Spear on That's Fair Zach's screen. The find of Valor is great because even though it's expensive, it's a full revive and it can be used offensively to deal with some of the undead enemies that you'll be encountering in the middle and later portions of the cave very effectively. The Dragon Spear touches on a point which we'll get into more later on as it matters more, but just know that it's a very rare find that can be used by Artie and only Artie in this composition, and it provides plus 50 agility, which is useful for not only outturning foes, but also being able to flee combat entirely. Because this game doesn't offer a ton in terms of survivability, sustainability, potions, recovery, and whatnot, it helps to either avoid combat entirely, be able to get out of combat if you don't need to be in it, or if you have a character who can go very quickly, have that character do things to end combat as quickly as possible. Dragon Spear will make Artie very capable of doing that. So That's Fair Zach is very happy with that.
And he finds also a Fatal pick. So this is an interesting decision. I'm assuming he's going to stay with a Fatal, with Dragon Spear, sorry. Because the Fatal pick is a cursed weapon, and once you equip it, you can't remove it unless you use a Curse Lifter, which is what removes the curse of the weapon, you know? So He's probably gonna stay with the Dragon Spear because of the agility bonus, at least for a while, unless he gets really on some sort of roadblock.
Yeah, especially in the early cave, that plus 50 agility is going to help immensely with turn order. And Chico referenced the Curse Lifter. We do know through not only just trial and error, but through contributions of the cave community in both disassembling the game and just figuring out how everything works, that every floor is procedurally generated in a particular way. It's going to be a unique run for everybody that runs through this pretty much at every time, unless you have extremely talented understanding of how manipulation works. So you're going to notice that from the get-go, these two have had entirely different runs, and it's going to stay that way for pretty much the entirety of it all until they get to the final floor. Any item or any spell, so consumable items like potions, antidotes, boomerangs, magic fruit like Traffic Talks just found, those are going to be found on any floor, as can any spell, as well as any item found in a blue chest, like that dragon spear that we found earlier. Other things like rapiers, they start early on and can be available all the time. Fatal picks don't start appearing for several floors in. So we focus on trying to understand what enemies are in what floor ranges and what chests provide what items within floor ranges to allow us to get what we need. A couple of big finds. The Fry Sword for Traffic Talks and also 2 red cores for that Sphere Zac are a very big deal.
Yeah, they are for sure. You want experience for sure. You don't want to get to the final floor at level 1.
So the big deal about cores is that they give a ton of EXP. If you're not too familiar with this game, but you've played other RPGs, they're familiar with the metal slime enemies from Dragon Quest games. They have a high chance to run away. They don't do that much damage, although if your party's level 1 when encountering them, they can be fairly threatening. They're not very bulky. They have 10 HP, or at least these cores have 10 HP, so they keel over fairly easily, but you'll notice that Zac's beating them up, and he's not doing too much damage to them physically. They keel over to any offensive magic spell, but physically they have a fairly high defense. So if you're coming at them with some basic weapons, you may not be able to get that much damage done. And as you saw, Zac was able to kill one fairly easily, but the other one he just couldn't hit hard enough. With a 75% chance to flee each turn, that's a big deal to try to get them with as much EXP as they give. For context, the enemies that give as much EXP as red cores don't start appearing for about another 30 floors, or roughly a third of the cave. So you want to get that EXP now while you have an opportunity, and they only appear between floors 11 through 13.
Yeah, you want them early on. Also, I mean, red cores and the green cores that we'll see later on are, I think they are like the most important of any run, pretty much.
Yeah, the red cores give that great start. You'll notice a lot of the runners that play this game, if you watch other streamers or have played it yourself, that you're probably going to be ending most of your speedruns at roughly level 30 to 35-ish. So being able to get one red core to jump yourself straight up to level 9 just goes to show how important it is that you're barely 10% of the run through, and you've already jumped up to about 30% of the level that you would like to be at. As chat's saying, and what you can see here, we're definitely having good starts by both players. A lot of interesting items, some good spells, core luck, and not a lot of party rooms that would slow everyone down. We're getting some pretty darn good times here.
Yeah, so far, Zac has no healing. Trav does, and I also think that Traffic Talks got a deadly sword at some point, so he has at least that possibility. Also Destroy, that has like a 50% chance of dealing instant death.
So 50% chance comes from the Destroy spell. It can be used to target multiple enemies simultaneously, which is pretty effective. It does have a reduced chance based on how many foes it does target, but sometimes you just really got to capitalize on that chance to hit something. There's also a Perish spell, which we haven't seen yet, which has 25% chance in terms of its instant kill accuracy, and that's not too desirable. Only Maxim can use it in this particular party composition anyway, so it's not going to get a lot of use, but it might come in clutch later. What we are looking for and more interested in are the deadly weapons, the deadly sword, the deadly rod, and also the fatal pick that we've seen on that Sphere Zac screen. We've seen a bunch of deadly swords already, and this game's English version features 2 different deadly swords. Fortunately, one of them only appears before floor 20. So it's very easy to know if you have the quote-unquote good one, because the bad one doesn't appear until 21 plus. Or, I'm sorry, 20 plus.
Yeah, exactly. Just as Triceratops found yet another deadly sword for Maxim.
So what's special about them is that they have the cursed property, like Chico mentioned, in terms of when you equip them, they are stuck on you until you uncurse them, and you can only uncurse them with an item that you have to discover called a curse lifter, which is fairly rare and hard to find. The perks of having it equipped, though, are that you have an 80% chance to kill any non-undead enemy that you touch with them. So they have 0 attack, but with that 80% instant kill, it can really help middle and late cave when enemies have far too much HP for you to be able to do much about.
Oh, so there's a rally find for Zac. So there's his healing. I mean, rally is not great because it kind of drains your magic points really fast. Because rally just heals for 100. So yeah, that's not great. But at least it's a healing.
And then he finds Trick almost immediately after, which is pretty darn good. Spells can be used to multi-target pretty easily, and when they do, they'll deal reduced damage or reduced healing based on whatever they're doing. The rally spell heals when it revives for 100 HP, the same as what a regain item does. But if you multi-target with it, it only heals for 25 per target if you're targeting all 4 party members. That's not much healing. Valor, on the other hand, being way more expensive, costing 3 times as much, heals for 2,000 or 500 when split across the entire party, which is a big deal. Also, like other roguelikes, there are ways to get out of the cave. The many blue chest items that we found, the catfish jewel that we saw a moment ago, the fry sword, the earring and dia ring, and a handful of other blue chest gear. If you were to travel to the game's 21st floor and beyond, you can find an item called the Providence, and if you use that, you can escape the cave. When you escape the cave, you don't take anything out of red chests with you, unless they're iris items, which we don't talk about those here. But the blue chest goodies you do get to take out with you, and a couple of enemies drop items which would be found from blue chests as well. You can take those out and re-enter the cave with them on subsequent attempts, making them wonderful practice finds. But also in general, they just tend to be very good finds, either granting very, very high physical attack stats or defensive stats. The rocks can vary, but usually their IPs are decent as well.
Yeah, I mean, for a casual player, what you pretty much want to do is to just get blue chests, Providence out over and over until you're pretty much powerful for the early game.
If you play this game in the campaign, you can take those blue chest items into the campaign with you, which just generally grant you a great statistical advantage against the enemies that you're dealing with, since you access the Ancient Cave through the campaign a little under halfway through the main game. We see Travic dealing with a few undead enemies here, the Ochi Warriors. He's fairly low level right now, he's only level 9. He does have the means to deal with these guys pretty effectively. He doesn't have the means to take a lot of damage from them, unfortunately. So he's going to be trying to kill them as quickly and effectively as possible. And one way he did it was by luring it to a door and getting a surprise attack on it by running into its side. The properties in this game with all the enemy movement on screen is that we know pretty much how every enemy is going to move, and each enemy takes a step when you do, or at least does its action to determine whether it takes a step or not when the player moves, or slashes their sword, which means you can manipulate where enemies go, and you can hit them in advantageous ways. For instance, hitting someone on the side, or running into their back face first. Depending on how you do that, you either have a 100% chance for a surprise attack, or a 50% chance to have it be a surprise attack. And the same goes for enemies to you, where enemies can get the jump on you.
Yeah, almost happened there.
Oh my goodness. We have a run over on Travic side.
We sure do.
Travic finds the ever so illustrious Decker Blade. Chico, why don't you explain why the Decker Blade is such a darn big deal in this?
So yeah, the Decker Blade is basically the main solution or one of the biggest, yeah, the biggest solution for the jelly fight, because it has a IP attack that is something we didn't explain yet, but we probably should eventually. Uh, Called Fatal Blow. What does Fatal Blow do? So Fatal Blow does 50% damage on pretty much any enemy, and that is a big deal for the jelly fight that we're gonna see later, hopefully.
Yeah, the big deal about the IP that I've alluded to a little bit, and Chico has alluded to a little bit. As you get hit or as you take damage from enemies, your IP meter, which is the yellow meter at the bottom of the in combat health bar at the very bottom of the screen, you have your HP, MP, and IP. IP is sort of like a early era limit break where you'll charge up your damage and it will refill itself faster based on how much health you have when you take damage. So that way you can expend it in the ability to use certain weapons, armors, and other equipment's IP abilities, which all have a determined rate of whatever their cost of IP is. The Decker Blade requires a 100% IP gauge, but its attack does an enormous amount of damage against the foes that it hits. And against the Jelly, who has nearly 10,000 HP, versus our characters who are hitting for 2, 3, sometimes 400 damage, you can see how a hit of roughly 5k at minimum will be a pretty big deal to have. Other things that we're looking out for are weapons like the Crystal Wand and Red Saber, which we've seen on screen. Those include IP abilities that cost 65%. They deal 3 times the attack stat of what you would normally see from a particular weapon. So having that damage boost to do 6, 7, 8, maybe 900 damage to an enemy, especially the Jelly, is a big deal. Those might get some regular use during the rest of the run, where combat against particular enemies that are more threatening, but ones that have to be killed maybe without a deadly weapon to instant kill them, will have to happen. So you might see them here and there.
Yeah, so Guy kind of has that problem that he doesn't have that many weapons with that 3 times attack, but considering that Traffic Tox has a Fright Sword, that is an extremely powerful weapon, that's probably not a big deal.
Each character brings something interesting to the table, as you already mentioned. Decker is a phenomenal tanky unit, great martial prowess, high attack stat, very low speed, but in this case it's not that big of a deal. He alone can use the Decker Blade, which automatically give him a spot on pretty much any cave runner's team. Guy cannot, but he can use pretty much everything else that Guy can. So he does have a lot of value in terms of his stats being like Decker light, so to speak. Artie and Maxim both can use almost all of the spells. Between the two of them, they can access pretty much every spell the cave has. Champion being the premier healing spell that both of our runners have discovered is a very big deal, and each runner has a revival spell as well. Valor for Traffic Tox and Rally for that Fair Zack. So each has a spell that can revive, and each has a powerful healing in the form of Champion, which will generally heal the entire party, and also can be used defensively for that Fair Zack as and Traffic for a little bit of a cheaper holy damage. So we're in the second stage of what the cave has right now. You notice that early on the music played one particular style and all the floors were lighter in design. Being in this section is where more challenging enemies begin to get introduced. On Traffic Tox's screen from 37 through 39, you find enemies called Assassins. Those are the first sort of threatening enemies that you kind of jump into if your party is even fairly leveled, because they have instant kill chances. They move 2 steps to your 1 step, and they can catch you off guard if you just run into a room. So you saw Traffic Tox kind of running in and out of a doorway or standing very close to a doorway in order to avoid going after and into a room where he could get, say, sandwiched between some threatening enemies. That Fair Zack is a little bit behind him. He's taking some time to look around for blue cores, which give a lot of EXP. They give as much EXP as 5 red cores, roughly. But he's also dealing with some very dangerous blue mimic enemies, which are blue chests without the white sheen.
Yeah, those are not fun. If you've played this game before, you might know them pretty well. They are a big run ender, they do a special attack called Frenzy, which does a lot of damage to all your party. So yeah, seeing them is never a good sign. Unless, of course, you see the stairs and you just leave them there.
Yeah, so because they can't move, they can occasionally spawn on top of stairs, which means not only do you have to discover where the stairs are and find out the hard way that they're under the blue mimics, but also you have to kill them to get past them. They're pretty bulky, they're very fast, they can hit the party very hard if they decide to. And overall, they are classic run enders, even though they're not that difficult to get around. In case you have to deal with them, they can be very threatening. Traffic Talks enters the 40s, which is the third and final main portion of the cave, so get used to this music for a while. On floors 41 through 43 are some of the most important enemies, the green core, which give as much as 3 blue cores, which already give as much as 5 reds. So you can imagine he'll be looking for those especially. From 44 through 46, however, are ninjas, which are some of the most threatening enemies in the first half of the cave due to having that 2 steps per your 1-step movement, but also being able to attack 2 times per turn, being generally faster than your entire party, having a very nasty AoE, and even a one-shot ability.
Yeah, the one-shot ability is pretty rare, but the AoE move that is Knife Thrower is fairly common. Kind of powerful. If you're under level, there's a very good chance your party wipes there. Unless, I don't know, you somehow manage to escape it.
So with the Dragon Spear, Zach's arty may be faster. We do know what enemy speeds are thanks to a lot of hard work put in by the community. Shoutouts to Real Critical, by the way, for having an excellent database and one that you guys yourselves can use if you decide to run the cave. Way better than GameFAQs, I tell you that much. We're going for every core that we can find to get all the levels we can, because if you remember, we got the red cores early on, and we got to level 9, maybe 10, maybe 11, without getting into too much other combat. But this is where you really want to start to be in the level 20, 25, maybe even level 30 range if possible. And you can't get that by fighting every enemy if you don't have good sustainability. And you also definitely need a couple of cores to help you get there, especially because green cores give almost the most XP out of all the enemies in the cave. Even going so far as down into the 90s where the final enemies begin to spawn.
I mean, yeah, for the place where they're at, like at floor 41 to 43, there's not any enemy that gives as much experience as green cores for sure.
But there is one more core type enemy that appears from floors 58 through 60. They're not quite as big of a deal because a lot of the safety comes from being able to deal with enemies that are faster than you and also hit way harder. And by the time you get to the later floors, you have ideally the means like a few deadly weapons, some good elemental weapons, and the ability to fight enemies' backsides to score some good safety EXP without having to stress too hard, versus having ninjas come charging at you, sometimes forced face-first combat, where you just don't have the ability to take advantage of what the enemies are capable of doing.
And seems like Zach is in kind of a nasty room.
Zach's also fairly underleveled. The teleporters that you saw, the green robe guys, they can port from room to room if you're close enough to a doorway when they are. Other enemies like the crabs, the sirens, or the lamias here, the ramias, excuse me, they can all hit fairly hard, and neither Zach nor Travic have really been overly cautious and conservative with their EXP preparations. There are a few other opportunities they could have had to get some safety EXP, and neither of them did it. They're clearly here to race. So while Zach takes a quick and easy escape out of this room by just taking a little bit of damage, it's lunchtime on Traffic Talks' screen. Your capsule monster, you get one of 7 different ones to run through, or run in the game with, and the Ancient Caves gift mode gives you all 7 right at the start, which is great. Normally in the campaign, you can only access certain party compositions and also certain party compositions with capsule monsters. In here, you get free reign to pick any party composition that you want. It looks like both of our runners picked Sully in this because Sully is arguably the fastest one by being the slowest. He doesn't act before your party does. He is fairly tanky, a good damage sponge, and he doesn't have attacks that have long animation stints. So it's either just a regular attack or he'll defend. And if you're subscribed to That's Fair Zach's Twitch, you can post your Sully defend emotes in chat now. The feeding and evolution part of capsule monsters gives you the ability to level them up, boost up their stats, give a few additional effects and abilities to what they can do, and sometimes gives you big value in terms of instant kill or status ailment affliction, such as Sully 2 on Traffic Talk's screen, who has an attack called Perish Punch, which can one-shot foes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was his idea, is just to try to get some Perish Punch here and there to kill stuff. Because
Well,
he
he has a
actually
fairly
didn't get any green cores, you know? So yeah, it's kind of needing some experience. It's preparing for the eventuality of seeing some ninjas that are pretty much coming up soon.
What is threatening as ninjas are the earlier assassins that we saw on that Zach's screen just a moment ago, and gosh, almost 8 floors ahead of time on Traffic's screen. They can be set up in such a way where we know they're weak to holy elemental attacks. We know what they're capable of doing in terms of movement, and they can only ever hit one person at a time. The ninjas do not share that weakness. They are just very fast, fairly strong enemies, and they're pretty much the premium reason why you begin thinking that taking Decker and Guy are such a big deal. There is a ninja on Traffic's screen. You can see he's able to outrun them. He's still being cautious, but being able to outrun them can be a pretty tricky task if you don't know what you're doing or if you don't know where you're going. So you'll see fairly often, like right now, Traffic is slashing his sword. He's trying to determine where enemies are. Ninjas will come dashing at you from wherever they are on the screen, even if you can't see them. They will make sure they're seen. And these slashes allow you to just buy some time and let them come to you and allow you to battle them on your own terms. That is a funnily positioned ninja on Traffic's screen just south of that bush. Unfortunately, you sometimes don't know if they're in the screen because a bush or a chest can slow them down and prevent them from coming right at you. So you still got to play cautious, even if you think you know where they are or have scouted the room successfully by, say, slashing your sword, running in a door, whatever. Otherwise, you'll just be caught off guard.
And there's plenty of them.
So there is a trick that can be set up to... Oh yeah, we can set up tricks to be able to attack them from the back successfully and safely. But there's only one specific instance that lets you do so. So normally you're stuck doing a side attack at best. You'll see they're not turning to face up into doorways. That's a big deal, because if you do end up doing something with them, you can at least try to get a 50-50 against them, where it's either a 50% chance to get in or, well, not. Green core for Zach. No complaints on that for sure.
Oh, absolutely not.
We also get the bush tech to deal with the ninjas by predicting where they're going to move around one side of a bush to another. That way we can take them out without having to stress, and at least get a 50-50 shot dealing with them. He got the jump on them this time, which is a big deal, and you can see he went all out to deal with these guys using IP abilities. One of the biggest, most expensive ones to deal with them from that beautiful, beautiful prize sword that he found early in the run. Now, what's unfortunate is that while on floors 44 through 46, there are ninjas, which are some of the most terrifying enemies that do really nothing for the player except hurt them. On floors 45 through 47, there are Brin's lizards, and you see one of them on Traffic Talk's screen right now. They have the ability to drop a blue chest item called a twist jewel. It's an accessory that anybody can use. It drops at a not so high rate. Not very many items in this game have a high drop rate. They're susceptible of fire and anti-flying attacks, and that twist jewel provides a ton of agility. It is the highest equipable option for agility boosting other than the dragon spear that can be found, and any character can equip them. Being able to outspeed enemies is obviously a big deal, and it also allows you to run away as well as outturn, so you can imagine why our players might be interested in maybe going out of their way to farm one of these if they have the ability to.
I mean, yeah, turning points of agility that the twist jewel provides can be very important later on. I mean, right now it's not that important. Artie's pretty much able to outspeed most of the stuff. The other characters are not as fast, but still, just because of the ability to escape stuff, it's still pretty useful.
some enemies in the later portion of the cave, only Artie can never hope to... Ooh, nice Decker Blade for... That's fair, Zach, by the way.
So that's one Decker Blade for each side, pretty much.
Yeah, that is. So both players have a real fighting chance at scoring the jelly kill now, so they may open a bit less as they go through, because they don't have to worry about quite as much. Yeah, as far as agility goes, Artie is the only person who has any reasonable hope to outspeed some of the most threatening enemies that the cave has. Through very careful manipulation, maybe Maxim can. And at the very end of the run, you do want to give Decker more agility if possible, because the sooner you utilize that Decker Blade's Fatal Blow IP, the more damage you can do with it, since it is a fractional attack that does damage based on the amount of HP that the foe currently has, not the amount of HP that their maximum is. Decker and Guy both being the slowest characters, and Guy only having a little bit more agility than Decker means that it doesn't take too much, maybe a plus 10 or plus 15 accessory to offset that, and Twist Jewel's plus 30 is great at helping out that. Zach's preparing for ninja combat. He's in a sticky situation. He can't set up a 50-50 here, and unfortunately, because ninjas come in threes very often, you're about to see just what they're capable of doing. Artie having the Dragon Spear is great, but he doesn't have a spell that can easily one-shot them. Due to his Artie's high level and Ice Valk, which is the third most powerful spell in the cave, he can come close, but he can't quite score the one-shot. You're able to see now that these guys can attack 2 times, and hopefully we don't see a knife thrower.
It seems like no knife throws. So this is still fine since Artie has that Dragon Spear, so it's always faster than the ninjas. Unfortunately, it's not enough damage with Ice Valk, but at least you have a chance to kill stuff.
So we're entering the cave's pretty late stages. Trivectox just entered into floor 51. He's dealing with some teleporting enemies that can suck away MP. They can do some pretty rough AoEs, and they have hundreds and hundreds of HP compared to foes 10, 15 floors prior to. He also is entering the point in the cave in which the contents of items that can appear in chests is reaching its minimum. Once you hit floor 50, 2 of the final 3 items are added in, the Old Sword and Lizard Blow, both fantastic weapons. And then on floor 60, the final item is added into the chest pool, the Myth Blade. The Myth Blade, much like the Decker Blade, has a percent-based damaging IP. That one deals 25% of a foe's current HP in terms of damage. The Old Sword deals 1/6, and the Lizard Blow is the most powerful weapon that has a built-in 3 times attack multiplier as one of its IP abilities. So 3 very important items can all be found after floor 50. Of course, they're added in conjunction with all the other items, so you might just find an apron or a potion, but being able to find those 3 items is just a very big deal.
Yeah, those 3 are excellent, especially Lizard Blow. I'm a fan of Lizard Blow because pretty much everyone can use it.
Yeah, regardless of your party composition, all 7 possible characters can equip the Lizard Blow, which is great. Means you can also pair it with, say, a rock, like a Camu Jewel or something that boosts attack, making its 3 times attack multiplier even more powerful. Zach is struggling. He is stuck dealing with ninjas, and I'm sure he is not happy about it. But he is dealing with them fairly well. He's got 1 single ninja on his screen. Normally, if there's 1 ninja, you really don't have that much to worry about. If there's 2, even if they go all out, if your party's a decent level, like in the mid-20s, you're probably going to be fine. It's when there's 3 ninjas that's a true problem. And since you never know when there's going to be 3, you always want to play it safe.
Yeah, especially because you can have all 3 ninjas on the front row. That's probably the worst possible combination, because just like characters, enemies also have
Gatey's Blade for traffic.
I see what's happening here.
So the Ancient Cave giveth and the Ancient Cave taketh away, and hopefully it won't take away right now. Where Decker's premier weapon is the Decker Blade, Decker and Guy can both use the Gatey's Blade. Ideally, you give the Decker Blade to Decker, and then Guy gets the Gatey's Blade, and you've got yourself pretty much a near-free jelly kill, with the exception of maybe wanting a few spells or some other small basic options of damage. It's an obscene amount of value in just those 2 IP abilities alone, dealing roughly 80% plus to the Jelly's max HP in 2 single moves of the 12 that you get in total is amazing. The 50s also introduce a few enemies that are one of the final enemies that we'll be looking for. From floors 53 through 55 and 58 through 60 are the Hydora or Hydra enemies, the green, sneaky, squiggly, wiggly sprites. They have a chance to drop the Hydora Rock, which is wonderful when paired with a weapon like the Fry Sword or just a powerful weapon, because it allows you to use the Rock's IP for that 3 times multiplier instead of a weapon. And you can just equip a stronger weapon and just get a lot of value out of that in terms of an IP attack against a Jelly or even regular foes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Meanwhile, Trev also got a Deadly Rod, so I mean, we'll see. But if he gets a Curse Lifter, yeah, this is pretty much a free kill, because the Deadly Rod, unlike the Fatal Pick, when you use the Curse Lifter on a Fatal Pick, it just makes the weapon more powerful, and that's pretty much it. But if you uncurse the Deadly Rod, it gets an IP ability that is also a fractional of 1/8 in the form of Devastation. Devastation does 12%.
That's 1/8, so 12.5%.
12.5, okay, yeah, exactly. So yeah, also useful because you can use it more than once, so yeah.
Yeah, you'll never really need to use it up to the 3 times that it requires, it provides you, but because it's a very cheap IP, it means Artie doesn't need a full IP meter in order to use it. If you do uncurse the weapons, the 80% kill property on a deadly weapon, fatal pick, sword, or whatever, it is reduced significantly. So you pretty much, if you put it on, you're committing to it like marriage. And when you take it off, that is specifically for the jelly kill, so you can either swap something else in entirely or just use the rod's IP. For Zach, because he has the fatal pick, if he does end up deciding to use that, if he takes it off, he may swap it with a 3x damage weapon, or maybe a Gorgon Rock, which we can discover later.
Yeah, I mean, he has the possibility of Crystal Wand, I think. So it's not like he's stuck to just tier 3 spells like Ice Vault that he's using right now.
We're also going to get a little tense for Travik. He is still a bit underleveled for this part of the cave in terms of safety goes, and these bushes can kind of mess you up. They have the ability to hit the entire party, they can hit people with various status ailments, but they also can attack just single targets, and that's not too threatening. He manages to score a no core, which is fabulous because they give the most experience out of any enemy in the cave. You'll notice that they can hurt you by attacking your entire party, so they're a little dangerous, but they give just such an obscene amount of EXP that this is a very big deal to find them, especially at this point. This will catch him up to Zach's level, who, Zach just being a few floors behind, still has a fair chance to keep up with him. We did see Zach fighting the Hydora earlier. He would like to get a Hydora Rock if he can, just because that has the ability to, like I said earlier, deal that 3x or 3 times attack multiplier damage. It also grants some decent stats, some more agility for Artie, so if you don't have a Twist Jewel or any other speed manipulator, that can help out in a pinch. And it can also be very useful to Jelly, giving Guy something to do who doesn't typically have that many options. Yes, don't confuse the Gorgon Rock that you can discover as an enemy drop with the Gorgon Rock that you can find in a blue chest. They are not the same, and you will only be sad if you fail to make that distinction.
Yeah, using the Gorgon Rock is surely a sad feeling. You'd be like, oh, it's fractional damage. Oh wait, no it's not.
I see very clever movement manipulation. The magma golems that are on Travik's screen, he was able to set them up in such a way where they never turned to face him. He always got them in a direction where they faced away from him, possibly for a free back attack. Because you can use your sword to slash and force enemies to move based on burning a step, quote unquote. You can set things up where enemies move into you advantageously, and maybe they won't move into you disadvantageously. So it's very important to study and understand the movement of the cave, especially in these late cave situations where almost any enemy composition can turn your peaceful, happy run into a game over. Both our runners have revival and healing spells, but you don't always get those. So it helps to waste as little time as possible in combat when you don't need it.
Look at that. 2 no cores, 2 green cores.
2 no cores.
Getting all the experience.
So a lot of our speedrunners will end the cave with not too much combat fought from here on if they can avoid it. There's not a lot that gives EXP that's worth it outside of maybe the dragon type enemies, which are in the final 20% of the cave. And they're threatening and dangerous, and we don't want to fight them unless we need to farm IP, and then we can just run away from them. So Traffic is just running around, grabbing a couple of extra things, ideally for survival, maybe a curse lifter, so we can fill out that last little gap of things that you can use on the final fight. And the situation with Zach is that he still needs a little bit of everything, but they both have Decker Blades, which are wonderful, so they're not stressing that much, but they do, of course, want to get that little extra bit of safety and security to make it so they don't have to engage in as much combat as they go along. Fortunately, the Dragon Spear allows for Artie to be able to be faster than many of the final threats that are coming up. He can't necessarily do a lot to them, but it does give him the option to, say, use a smoke ball and trigger a flee or a combat escape without having to actually use flee, which is less effective because it kind of takes a weighted average of the fastest and slowest living party members' agilities and compares them against enemies to determine if you actually are able to escape. If Artie just uses a smoke ball, well, that's his action. He's faster than everyone else, so he guarantees to do it first if he's able to be faster. So Zach's holding on to that Dragon Spear as long as he can.
Yeah, I mean, he has no reason to equip it that way right now, anyway. Yeah, floor 62. There's no point in putting it that way unless he gets stuck into like something that he really needs to take out. So I would also move on to a Dragon Spear.
Both of our runners are in very sticky situations right now. The Gold Gorems and teleporting leeches, yes, I did not say them incorrectly, on each of our players' screens are incredibly threatening. The Salamanders on that Spare Zac screen are also incredibly threatening. All of these enemies have chances to do high damaging attacks. 469, nice. High damaging AoEs that can turn even a well-prepared party into a game over screen very quickly. So we're seeing our runners be very careful, avoiding combat because of just how horrifying the damage output can be from enemies. And ideally, because neither of them have deadlies with curse lifters, no additional backup combat unless something's absolutely necessary. For instance, killing these basilisks to get onto the stairs that are currently slowing Zach down.
Yeah, he had to heal up there because it took some damage on the previous fight, so yeah. Playing it safe.
So enemies now can do a lot. They can paralyze your team, like we're seeing on Zach's screen where his Artie just got paralyzed. They can still put you to sleep. Floors 67 through 71 feature those leeches as teleporting sprites, which can teleport from anywhere on the screen, such as off-screen, to land on top of you sometimes if you're not prepared and not playing it safe. And if they land on top of you, that could be game over, if it's even a single leech, depending on what they do to you. So he's past the leeches now, and he's preparing for other horrifying enemies.
It becomes even worse when they surprise attack you, when you're not totally expecting it.
So for this portion of the cave, we're going to be seeing a lot of the blue guys, the genies or the Cyclops sprites, which can be, at this moment, either Cyclopses or genies, and the elusive but illustrious and ever so hated Archfiends. The Archfiends are one of the premier enemies of late cave. They can go twice, they can do 2 different fairly nasty AoEs, they can cast an instant kill, or they can heal themselves a little bit. And They can sometimes come in pairs, which means you can deal with 4 of their AoEs. And if they decide to go all out, you won't see that 4th AoE. You'll just die first. The green dragons on Zach's screen may not seem as threatening as others because of their size, but they're very terrifying. They are white dragons. They're pretty much always going to be faster than you. They have a lot of damage that they can deal. And sometimes you can't recover after dealing or just trying to hit run away and expect your team to run away because they'll hit your team with 3 AoEs and you'll just die. So there's again, a lot of danger for these players. And this is where you really begin to see good fortune mixed with good skill from the various runners that are out there, because not only do you have to know what it is that you're dealing with, you have to have the stuff to deal with it and recover out and to be able to keep going.
Yeah, just as shown there by that Earth Genie, just using its incendiary, doing a truckload of damage. That could have been way worse if, like, any of the others would have survived on the first round.
This Archfiend Leech combination is among the scariest because RD is the only character that can reasonably outspeed the Archfiends to bop it with a Deadly Rod or a Fatal Pick if he has a Twist Jewel or something. And they can act twice, and as you can see here, he is being devastated. He survived because he played it smart.
So this is still not over.
He's going to engage in one more combat because of how the enemies move in reference to where he is. That's why he is preparing very carefully to full heal and jump in. The leeches can outspeed Artie fairly reliably unless he has a dragon spear, and also there are a lot of leeches on screen right now. They can paralyze Artie, who may be one of your only shots to deal with the Archfiend, and then you're just stuck in a horrible situation. Again, we see he lose 2 characters in combat back-to-back, so you can just see how dangerous the speedrun is. Yeah, he has all the jelly kill stuff that he could ever want, but he still has to get there alive. And Zach's not dealing with things that much differently. He does have Holy options, so he can spellcast the leeches to death if he does have to kill them. But when you're close to leeches, they don't teleport. If you're within 4 tiles of where leech is, it'll just meander around. Every 3 steps that you take, it will walk 1 random step, and that can really slow you down. Nice silver eye, by the way, for traffic. That's an agility boosting option.
Yeah, 20 points agility.
Yeah, so Zach is level 32 right now, and a lot of speedrunners will end their run at that level. Traffic is level, 26, I think? So he is definitely missing out on that 6 levels of bulk, extra HP, extra speed. He is really, really playing cautiously, and you can see just how fast he's running. But seriously, both of our runners are within 10 floors of each other. This is phenomenal. Zach and Traffic Talks are 2 of the 5 people that have speedruns in under 50 minutes for the Ancient Cave. So it's great to watch 2 people very talented zipping through, dodging these enemies as effectively as they can. Nice Gorgon drop for Traffic, by the way.
It is. And that was a Fright Sword crit. Nice damage there.
These Hydora sprites do not drop the exciting and useful and valuable Hydora rock. They are Orkies. They can attack 8 times, drop the bad Gorgan rock, and also have the highest HP of every enemy in the cave. They are not to be trifled with, and you can see Traffic being very careful here to lure this Archfiend away without getting in range of that Orky, which could severely punish him for making a single misstep.
And that Orky is taking its time to weave. Yeah, he wants the Orky away from that place so he can deal with the Archfiend way easier.
Yeah, there's easy ways to lure enemies, especially fat enemies that follow you around chests and bushes. You'll see he's going to lure it such that he sets it below and he goes up on the left side, just like that. And he's able to get around it. It's because their left the left side of their sprite is what follows you. So you want to set them up so their left is set up in such a way that it forces their right side booty to be stuck against the chest or bush. They can't chase you while you get a safe chance to run around.
That's an interesting room for trap right there. That's plenty of Archfiend sprites there.
Yep, it looks like he's going to lure the Cyclops on the bottom side of that chest, and then he's going to try to lure that Archfiend to the opposite side of that bush if he can. to try to outrun it without luring and activating the aggro zone of the other two Archfiends on the bottom. We do know what the aggro zones are for enemies, so we're able to predict kind of where things will be in terms of enemy behavior. But we still don't always know where the stairs and doors are in a room unless you see them fully. And he looks out with that stair being right there and follows up into an immediate forced combat situation on the next floor. So the runner in you might be tempted to just brute force your way through. But again, we see excellent movement out of Travik, utilizing his understanding that they move horizontally, then vertically, and repeat in order to try to predict where they're going to go and set up such a situation where he doesn't get into repeated combats against these guys.
Ooh, there's even more. Yeah, this is a disgusting room. Yeah, he's gonna deal with the Ice Rogue. I think it's a good decision, even though we've seen a miss from Artie there.
So these Ice Rogues are not the most horrifying enemies. Artie is faster than them. They only have about 500 or so HP, and they're weak to Holy. So the Fry Sword can just one-shot them, which he is lucky to have. Of course, please understand how rare of a find that is. But they also don't go twice in a turn. Artie really demonstrating what 80% chance means.
Oh, absolutely. He wants to show off.
Also, do be aware that our runners need a lot of IP for the final battle coming up. Zach has a team with full IP, but he's still further behind. Gady's Blade and Decker's Blade both require 100% IP, and it is just as easy to lose it as it is to find an enemy that can give it to you. And in this late cave, you can see just how dangerous things are, such that you don't want to really mess around with what enemies are capable of doing in order to try to refill IP when they can decimate your party in the process and force you to start the entire job over. So it's important to try to spread out damage, and there's a reason why we're always keeping people alive. When enemies cast spells, like the Archfiend is casting Thunder, they deal more damage based on how many targets it's split across. So we're trying to set situations up where there's always as many people to split damage up to reduce the amount of damage that people like Decker take from targeting maybe one or even two people out with Thunder. Floor 81 means we have the final floor that can be explored is floor 98, and floor 99 is the final floor. So this 100 floor dive technically counts the lobby where nothing actually happens as a floor, even though it doesn't display it as such. But when people think of this being a 100 floor cave, that's kind of what they're thinking. Zach is in the 70s. I think it was he on 70 or 71? Maybe he just got to 72. So there really, again, there are only like 10 floors separating these runners. They're both performing absolutely phenomenally. And this 2-hour estimate could very easily be blown to pieces.
Yeah, I mean, they have the tools to work with pretty much anything. They both have deadlies, they have healing, they have a way to deal with the jelly fight if they get there, which we are surely hoping that's what's gonna happen.
A lot of these enemies that they're parked on top of stairs, like Archfiends or the Genies, it's difficult to get them off safely or in a situation where you don't have to fight them in order to deal with them. Copper Dragons are enemies that feature a sort of random movement. Oh, gosh, I think his Artie is 0 for 3. But the Genies were popped on top of stairs, so that's pretty inconsistent or unfortunate for him that he's got to find interesting ways to deal with them safely.
Yeah, Destroy is being more effective than a Deadly Rod.
So Copper Dragons are kind of the final enemy that you would want to use for IP. The Dragon Sprites and Dark Summoners, which are the green teleporters that we're seeing on Travik's screen for pretty much the remainder of the run. Once you hit floor 88, they are the only two enemies that you'll see are the Metallic Dragons in their pink sprite form, and you won't know what they are. And,
that's a party. Not like the one.
There's definitely some forced combat here. You can see the stairs are in the top right side of his screen, so he's going to have to find ways to deal with these Genies somehow without taking on too much time burning IP, burning resources.
Artie better not miss, because this could be a very complicated situation if he decides to. He skipped there. He's trying to get a 50-50.
We saw pretty much everything that the genies can do. They can do an absorb, or they steal a bunch of your MP. They can defend, or they have a 24% chance to use an AoE attack that hits everyone pretty hard. And we saw one of each of those. He's going for that 50-50 shot to try to get the back attack on one of them. So he's going to predictably step up and swipe, step sideways and swipe to try to get them to run into him advantageously. He gets just that, so he has the back attack here, which means Artie can ideally outspeed one of them and kill it with a deadly, like that. Maxim can cast Destroy to use a 50% kill on a second one, and then the third one can either be beaten up or just not be threatening. Or a Terror Ball, which misses. Or Perish Punch, which...
Oh, it missed too.
You can also put these guys to sleep or paralyze them by using status balls like the Freeze Ball, Sleep Ball, or even Confuse Ball with 100% accuracy, or cast the status element spell.
On that one, or Genie, the last one that was there, used because he actually attacked.
So not too many enemies left in the cave can be afflicted by status ailments. The dragons, only the Copper Dragon can be afflicted by status, not the Silver or Gold. The undead enemies cannot, the Archfiends cannot, the Dark Summoners. Pretty sure they can't. I've never actually tried afflicting them with status. They can't. But they're also way faster than your teammates anyway, even with a Dragon Spear and a Twister. So you're just not dealing with them in any predictable way. You can back attack them maybe and hope you deal with them. They're not too strong bulk-wise, but boy, howdy, they're threatening if they get going. They're seeing very quick and efficient play out of traffic tops, showing just how powerful German engineering is. And he lucks out. So him being behind on EXP, these guys are these Copper Dragons are giving just a very nice amount of catch-up EXP. They can be used for IP farming in the next 10 or so floors, and it's important that his characters be able to survive what they can do in order to get the IP that they need. Again, Decker and Guy need 100% for the Decker and Gage Blaze respectively. The others don't need as much.
Enough IP right now. I'm just not sure on Maxim, but it might be enough because he just needs 60% for Red Saber, assuming that's what he's doing.
And that looks like about 75% or so. So we saw a very clever play here. Not quite done, but there he goes. Now he skips out. That's a very well done floor. A lot of new players may just seem overwhelmed by that, and there's absolute reason to be. But with good understanding of what enemies are capable of doing, and a full understanding of your tools, using consumables like the Terror Ball, casting Destroy, using your Deadly Rods, afflicting status ailments, you can really get out of sticky situations. Here we go, a Sleep Ball for the genies here. I mean, there's a lot of ways where things that seem pretty unlikely, you can actually provide a lot of value, even if they're just a 1 or 2 or 3 times used thing. It's important to just understand what you can do with the tools that you have. And that's what makes the Ancient Cave so exciting, is that with every run being different and a ton of tools at your disposal can do little bits of this or that, it's always fun to see what type of combinations you have to pull to just get to the end.
Yeah, sometimes there's different solutions for many situations, especially with stuff like status balls, deadlies, spells. Sometimes, I don't know, guessing stuff like killing ninjas with maybe Zap, for example.
The double Archfiends on Zach's screen are scary. The triple Wind Genies on Traffic Talk's screen are also quite scary, but not quite as scary. You can back attack the genies at least.
Yeah, that's an advantage compared to the Archfiends.
So again, just the sheer amount of damage that was done here. Zach was able to barely survive, and fortunately he has his revival spells, he has his healing, so he can patch back up. But if he were 5 or 6 levels lower, his Decker may not have had the HP to survive that onslaught of spells, and that was them being nice. They do have some things that they can do, and unfortunately he has to deal with them again, just by way of what their movement requires that you do in order to pass them this way.
So this means he has 2 more forced encounters at least with something that might be also Archfiends.
It's horrible because this is only one enemy, and he's dealt with them twice, and they've really given him a hard go. He also has to be very careful such that he doesn't get himself into a position where he fights this arm. Oh, this isn't actually that threatening.
Yeah, that's way kinder. That's what you want to see.
So the Archfiend sprites, depending on the floor you're on, can be an Ice Rog instead of an Archfiend, and they can bring with them a Hades Chariot, or a Leech, or an Archfiend. So in some cases, you might get only one Ice Rog. In some cases, you'll get 2 Ice Rogs, like Traffic had earlier. In this case, you got the Ice Rog and a Hades Chariot, and boy, this is one of the more refreshing things. So they have a ton of HP, but funnily enough, they have a defense equal to the same as the Mosquitoes from very early Cave. Just, I feel like it should have been higher. Maybe they forgot to add a 0 in there. I don't know. I just get a chuckle of how defensively weak the Hades Chariots are. Yeah, 20 defense, the same as Mosquitoes. So floor 88 for Traffic. Get used to these final enemies. He's not going to be opening that much. He's not going to be engaging in combat that much unless he desperately needs IP, which I think his IP was pretty full. And he just wants to get to the end. So this may go by faster than you think. If things go well, we could make it to the final floor within the next 5 minutes on Traffic's screen. And Zach maybe within the next 10 minutes if he can get past these Genies and Archfiends pretty easily. You have to be careful with the green teleporters. They may not seem that threatening, especially because you've seen that sprite before. They can teleport into doorways, and if they load maybe 2 or 3 tiles below you when you're entering a new room and you walk straight down into them, you can really get yourself in a pickle because they'll teleport up into the doorway and get stuck in such a position that you have to engage with them in order to try to get past them. And if you're running into them face first, you're not killing them. You just aren't. They're going to get 2 turns each. They're going to paper cut you to death by casting Bolt a bunch of times or AoE perishing your party or something. It can be horrible. When they come in pairs like this instead of 4s, they're much more manageable. And because you can back attack them, you can let them wander around such that they teleport facing in a direction that they were facing before they teleported, and then you can deal with them efficiently that way.
Weakness to Fry Sword, that's also a good thing to have on this case.
Yeah, that Fry Sword is a very valuable tool. Its IP, you can see he's thinking about using it here and then refilling his IP later. With clever defeat methods of how you kill these guys, you can make it so that way they can't do some of their threatening options to you. What that means is they can summon allies as well as cast a bunch of spells at you. And if you set them up like this, where there's 2 next to each other with a gap in between, there's no room in between them to summon an enemy. So it limits what they can pull into the battle, like leeches. And it forces them to use maybe a spell, which can be more manageable, depending on what you're trying to do.
It was an excellent way to kill those Arc Summoners.
So we don't know what this dragon is, and unfortunately the option for silver or gold does exist. We saw the coppers. They're not too threatening. They just got their big booties, and you can put them to sleep or whatever. Silver dragons and gold dragons cannot be affected by status ailments. They are all about the same speed, around 140 in speed, so Archie can outspeed them and deadly them if he connects. The big difference is silvers can act 2 times, and golds can act up to 3 times per combat. Both of them have very nasty AoEs, and funnily enough, the silver dragons do drop the silver eye that Traffic Tox's already is using to outspeed them comfortably. But when something happens like a destroy misses or a deadly misses, then your following turn is stuck in a situation where you need to pray that something connects. Otherwise, your next turn, your options are very limited. Right now, on this turn, because it's now just a regular turn, if he decides to run away, he has to hope he doesn't get diamond dusted for 300 damage or so to each party member. And he also needs to find an opportunity to refill IP for his team.
Well, this
he
is
kind of lucks out here.
Dragons never kill anyone.
Dragons never killed anyone, that's right. So in tight hallways like this, it can be tough to get a back attack on them, but you absolutely want to get that. And there's few opportunities too when you don't have a bush or something to hide behind or force them to run up against. We do know that with the incredible ability of counting to 3, that you can set up yourself to be able to back attack them from 2 tiles away by setting them up to run into a wall or a bush or a chest or another enemy on that 3rd step while you're 2 away, so that way you can run up to them before they have a chance to turn around. We are nail biting here because these dragons with 2 AoEs could end this run, and unfortunately their chances at using an AoE aren't they're not negligible. Unfortunately, they are what is it, 18% chance I think it is to use their AoEs. Artie can outspeed and he can take an 80% chance to just straight up one shot, but if the one that he doesn't one shot decides to be nasty and double AoE, then Artie will just die, and well, it's just Decker and maybe Guy left alive, so it can be sticky. Traffic is struggling again.
More dragons.
More dragons. He does need IP, so he needs to find a copper dragon, or a copper plus gold, or a copper plus silver, and kill the other one, such that he can set up an IP at farm. He is thinking about that blue chest on Zach's screen. That could be a Gades blade. Every blue chest you don't open is a Gades blade, obviously. That's the rule. So he's thinking, do I go for the stairs, or do I aggro both Archfiends and take a chance at a catfish jewel or something stupid?
Engage ring.
He showed up. Engage ring. He showed up great awareness by moving exactly where they would not be able to aggro him, which is again a big deal. It always helps to know what your enemies are capable of and what their movement patterns are. One thing that the teleporters do, they tend not to teleport on top of you, but if you're just running around, then you can accidentally run into the tile that a teleporter will land on top of. And a lot of people think, oh no, it teleported on top of me. No, you just held run, and it teleported in front of you, and you didn't know that it was going to teleport in front of you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to DragonCon 2024, by the way.
Yeah. Dragons really want to mess with Trav.
Zach is on floor 89 now, I believe. I think I just saw him hit, which is also the time in which it is only... Oh, floor 90. Yeah, there we go. So they are both... Again, these runners are fantastic, and they're demonstrating their skill, knowledge, and adaptability. Where Travic still needs IP, I do believe Zach is ready, but he has less stuff in terms of a jelly kill, so I still think he's opening to find just a little bit of more security for what he needs for a jelly kill. It is tempting to try to hit those stairs and run into a dragon for a 50-50 opportunity, but for safety, you just know that you can't. He finally gets through. Floor 94. So again, at this point, it's just the same enemies left and right. We're just looking for copper dragons. I don't think we've seen a curse lifter for either player. Nice coppers on everybody's screen, by the way.
Or we've seen no curse lifters. So I guess
Travic is
magic.
Travic gets what he wants. He uses a deadly on both of the copper dragons. One of them misses, which is perfect. And Sully didn't perish punch, which is perfect. He's unequipping Decker such that Decker takes more damage. And this is what every speedrunner hopes for, is the Cinder Blast. Again, remember, the more damage you take, the more IP you gain when you take damage. So by strategically setting up the party such that their HP is in specific values and knowing how much damage, say, Decker will take from a Cinder Blast, you can keep them at like 250 or 300 HP at, say, 400 or 500, whatever, and make it so they gain more IP on a second attack. Zach is IP farming, and he doesn't need it for the Decker Blade. It looks like maybe he wants some more for Artie. He probably plans on having Artie use the Dragon Spear's IP or something else. I'm not entirely sure why, because it looks like he's pretty good, but regardless, he's full now, and that's what matters.
Yeah, I don't see him getting IP. Is there a reason for giving IP to Guy? Maybe.
On his screen, if he were to find a myth, he'd need a lot of IP, and it looks like he's still opening, so it's good to have Guy prepared. Or, Schrodinger's Gades, of course. So it's getting to that point, by the way. On Traffic Talk to Screen, he's only got a few floors left. This run is not done by any means. Each player still has a maximum of 8 chests per floor, a maximum of 20 enemies per floor, and just, the stairs to find. But if you haven't already, go ahead and open up your calculators, because within the next couple of minutes, very likely Travic will be at the final floor and adjusting his party's equipment for the jelly battle. Travic has pretty much a free kill by way of Decker Blade, Gorgon Rock, Gatey's Blade, and also the Red Saber for Maxim. Plus, I think he has Thunder, which is about as premier as it gets.
Yeah, he has.
Zach's a little tighter, but still having a Decker Blade is just a very big deal. And of course, we're gonna hope that both of our runners get jelly kills and show us exactly what can happen when you go through this run. They've both had to fight through a lot of scary situations, and they both demonstrated that with clever play, strategic understanding of what movement does, and good item usage, you can do what you need to do. Floor 98 for Travic means he is just about there. So again, if you haven't already, whip out those calculators, as I'm about to do, and get ready, because the next floor for Travic is the final floor. What we're going to want to see for the jelly battle itself is we want the Decker Blade, of course. We're going to want to try to buff the attack power of of Guy for the Gatey's Blade, and also the Red Saber, if we can, for Maxim as well. Usually, using the Trick Spell will accomplish that, or maybe a Power Gourd item, which can only boost one person's attack power by a smaller amount, but still an attack boost is an attack boost. We also want to deal less damage before using our fractionals, such as the Decker Blade and Gorgon Rock. So we're going to try and get Decker faster than anybody we can, like with the Silver Eye here to make him faster than Guy. And we're going to stick all of our attack boosting equipment onto Guy to make that Gatey's Blade hit just as hard as it possibly can.
I'm just not sure if he has Trick. I don't think so.
I didn't see him get Trick. I saw Zach get Trick earlier.
Doing Trav, he might use a Power Gourd.
We're also feeding up Sully, it looks like, to form 4. This is just for extra insurance, and also so that way people in chat can spam their Moai emotes. Because everybody loves Sully, come on. He can still defend at a roughly 40% chance per action, no matter what form he's in. So if you just have a big boy on stage, well, I mean, why the heck not? He's got a little time here to flex, and he's also showing off that feeding logic in this game is just very strange. So he's doing what he can to get up. He's going for Sully 3. Each evolved form just has stronger attacks, so it's typically worthwhile just getting up a little bit. But going to form 4 isn't necessarily mandatory. And he probably isn't here. Oh, form 3 is pretty easy to get to. Sometimes you can unequip your team of useless things to feed them as well. What's important to know also in the Gatey's Blade is it's not that great in the context of the main cave. It's only a big deal for the jelly fight itself. No Power Gourds, no Trick.
I mean, once you get stuck, I don't know, ninjas, and you have full IP, and boom, well, Octo Strike, ninjas to death. Although it's very situational for sure, the usage of a Gatey's Blade.
So about the guy that we see Artie and Decker using their front row percent-based IPs, because they actually do more from the front row. And then Maxim and Guy at the back will be doing pretty much as little damage as possible, and maybe some additional setup. So that way the Decker Blade does as much as it possibly can.
Yeah, so he's casting
that is a huge 92% quality axe attack. And a right in the middle 52% fatal blow. We're sitting at a little over 6,700 damage dealt out of the 9,980 that our jelly has. 6,725 specifically. So we are looking good because that Gatey's Blade is going to be doing a lot, but we still have to play it smartly or intelligently. We're going to stick our melee attacks in the front row and cast spells from the back like Thunder, because spells don't care what row they're cast in. They'll always do the max damage regardless. Thunder is the second most powerful spell in the cave, and it's the most powerful that Maxim can use. So we're happy to have that one here.
I mean,
this is what the Gatey's Blade is built up for, golly.
Yeah. There was no way Maxim would do 300 damage on the back row with a red saber.
We also like Decker being in the front row because it does a fairly reasonable amount of damage. Sully defends perfect. We got 1,889 damage. Jelly has 440 HP left, so Maximum's going to get the finishing blow here because Thunder won't quite kill. So everyone prepare for a round of applause. Give a heartfelt win to Travik because he is done.
Nice run.
And fantastic time too. 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 30 seconds is nothing short of phenomenal. When you defeat the Jelly, you get a Providence, which allows you to escape the cave, even if you have fed yours away or dropped yours or haven't found it somehow. You can take any blue chest things out with you, and you get access to a couple of additional items the cave would allow you to use. There are 3 behind the Ancient Cave main lobby, and you can, through clever movement, actually take those items into the cave with you, although you can't take them back out with you. So it's funny to see just kind of what they can do. The Jelly gives you the Ancient Key, and he celebrates your tactical prowess as a genius warrior and combatant. And then he waves bye-bye and teleports. So say with us, bye-bye! Meanwhile, Zach is right behind him. Currently within 2 minutes, he's on floor 97, showing that the 2 different run styles here have been absolutely nothing short of very phenomenal. The Gades Blade that Travik had filled out a lot of damage that Zach is going to have to squeeze out for. Guy and Decker and Sully didn't even attack on turn 3, and we were able to get a kill. And it's possible we could have had a 2-turn if we had a red saber used instead of Decker being in the front row on turn 2 for Travik. We don't have that luxury on Zach's team, so he is still opening. But he has Trick, which allows his physical-based attacks to do more than he would normally be able to do. Thanks from Travik. So this one's going to be a little tighter. We have the final floor to explore for our champion over here. Or I'm sorry, our hopefully champion runner. That's fair, Zach. I mean, they're both, again, phenomenal runners, so definitely give them both a huge thank you.
Yeah, like you said, they both have sub 50 runs, so yeah, they're pretty great runners.
Thank you, Chico. Thank you, Travik, for giving us a small shout out. Yes, one other shout out, Ancient Cave community. We're always happy to see people speedrunning the Ancient Cave, but also just seeing people stream the cave. We don't always look for speedrunners, we just look for people who are having fun diving through this. It's 99 floors of pain, misery, and struggle, and it helps to just learn what you're doing. So if you happen to have an interest in running the Ancient Cave, if you stream it, we will come. I spend every day looking for streamers just so I can watch them, offer a little bit of advice and guidance, and help make sure that that Jelly kill gets earned. I don't care if you're doing it for 2 hours or 10 hours. I just want to see people having fun.
You just want Jelly kills.
We just want Jelly kills. That's all we want. I think Zach is still trying to find what he can in order to squeeze out maybe just one more useful find. Guy loves having the Gades Blade and Travik's run. In this, unfortunately, Guy doesn't have anything super de facto. I should definitely use this for Zach's team. So it's a little tricky right now.
I have no room for anything else, so yeah, I guess I'll just go and something and put that something.
We're going to see a different setup here. This time we have Maxim using the 3x multiplier-based attack, the Silver Sword, which is the strongest one that we have access to outside of the Lizard Blow, which we don't even have. Maxim alone has access to the Silver Sword, and it's pretty good. It hits pretty hard. He's going to give the attack boost likely to him so he can make that 3x do as much as it can. Oh, he might give it to Decker, depending on what he wants to do. And he can also fish for crits or use a slightly weaker 1.5x attack on Guy, depending on what he wants to do there. Trick does not boost the attack power of 1.5 multiplier attacks, only 3. So we gotta be careful there.
And those 1.5 weapons, they don't actually scale with the trick spell for some reason. did so much time once again.
And in this case, we need to be a little more careful with our feeding. The kill was basically free for Traffic Talks. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the opportunity to have his Sully do any specials, but they weren't necessary either. In this case, we're definitely hoping for a Sully special, which means we need to be a bit more careful with the things that we feed our Sully so we can ideally get to Form 4 and get that additional damage out.
Because he opened a lot of stuff. He got like the full screen, full free message. So yeah, he should have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, fishing for crits, trick boosted attacks. That's just what we're gonna have to get at a guy. And Sully 4 has one of the strongest attacks available to capsule monsters. He has a low chance to use it, but in this case, it's a pretty tight setup. So. Feeding up, we're seeing Zach be as careful and strategic as he can to feed specific items that give points. That way he's not wasting items because he's pretty tight on the things that he has in order to get to Form 4 here. The consumables, for instance, miracles, X potions, they will apply 1 pip out of the 32 per form. And as you feed up and evolve to different forms, those pips are not. So, for instance, if he ate a miracle in Form 2, he won't eat it in Form 3. You can assume everything that gives a point will give half down to 0, depending on whatever it is per form. So we just have to be careful with it all. Magic fruits give 8, and we just saw the magic fruit fed there. They give 8 regardless of form, so we just want to save those for final levels or final feedings. Not finding a curse lifter also really hurts because RD is limited on what he can do big time. All he can do is sling spells. The Boom Sword for just high damage and crit potential. Decker Blade, Silver Sword for its 3x multiplier, and spell casting from Artie. This one's going to be tight, so definitely whip out your calculators for this one. We're going to be hoping for the largest fatal blow that we can get our hands on. One last victory dance. There we go. So again, Decker in the front row. In this case, we're going to keep Guy in the front, likely, because we want to cast spells from the back and save our... We want to push every little bit possible, so we're going to rely just on big hits across the board in order to try to squeeze this kill out. Maxim will save his 3x for another turn, and the option to cast Trick twice, or to cast Trick once, and then a damaging spell once, are up there. Typically, if you have 2 finishers, which are 2 big 3x multipliers, gaties, whatever, you'll cast Trick twice if given the option. In this case, we only have 1 finisher, and Guy's options are so limited, we're not exactly sure what to do here. There isn't a very easy to think of and definitive answer that, depending on your setup, will always do, because you don't know what your fatal blow will do on the first go about. We've seen opening trick, a pretty decent attack for both Maxim and Guy. Sully defending, of course, and a fatal blow that does about 61% of what it could have done. We're at 5,971 damage with about 4k left. It's going to be tight. Maxim will do about 1k with his trick boosted silver, maybe around 900 with his silver sword. And we know Ice Valk will do around 320 or so from Artie.
He went for Dragon though.
Oh, he got Dragon. That's weaker than Ice Valk. Interesting. It's not too much weaker, but it is weaker. It's also slower. 862. Yep, we're close on that. No crit from Guy is concerning.
Oh,
big crit from Decker, though.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's what you want to see.
8,320. We need to deal 1,660 damage left to the Jelly. And it's possible. We're going to double spell cast from the back and hope for 1 more crit.
We want a better
Dragon out of Maxim won't deal much. Yeah, Battle Anger or even just a punch from Sully will be helpful. So this one's going to be to the wire, guys. $9,297 HP remaining. No crit, no additional hits, nothing to give us the final kill, unfortunately. So that is on turn 4. The outspeeds you, and he hits himself in the face and runs away. So unfortunately, no kill for Zach, but a great performance. He did everything that we could have hoped for out of a runner, and you saw that he was within 10 minutes of Traffic here with a far worse setup. So it goes to show that with knowledge of the cave, you can really keep your times great and impressive. And sometimes a little luck makes that jelly kill come together or not, but the skill is what it takes to turn the ancient cave into a real run.
Yeah. I mean, any action from Zoe and he would get a jelly kill. That wasn't a punch on, or even depending on the first turn.
So guys, that's going to be it for our ancient cave. Zach will get a Providence to escape the cave and take blue chests out with him, but he will not have a jelly reward to take out, and he will not be able to access the items in the back of the cave, unfortunately. This is still a very fantastic run. Our runners gave us a lot to think about, a lot of very fantastic skills used across the board, and it was absolutely worth praise to see what could have happened. Outside of Zach using Dragon instead of Ice Valk, I'm not sure that there's a lot more damage that could be earned to cause that 300 damage gap to be put together. But it was still a great run by both people, and yeah, good walk across the way.
It's good when we get 2 runs that reach the jelly, even though one of them didn't kill. I mean, it's good to get there still.
Yeah, marathon settings for just getting to the jelly are difficult to work with because you get 2 hours to play safely, but both of these runners said, forget safety, we're just going to go fast. And we finished roughly 45 minutes ahead of time for both of our runners, which is, like I said earlier, nothing short of fantastic, just how times these are. A lot of runners hope to get times under sub 90, and these runners both got to the jelly and finished up a jelly battle within 90 minutes, so this is a fantastic performance. If you were to call it a night here, that would be fine because we're about to wrap it up. So everybody, thank you for joining us and being part of this Ancient Cave race between Traffic Talks and That's Fair Zach. I've been Ellison and El Chico Rafa as well with me on commentary. I look forward to seeing you again playing the Ancient Cave yourself.